You're listening to Feel Good Astrology with Louisa Tanner Munson. To request a reading with Louisa, go to www.feelgoodastrology.com.
Hey there, it's Louisa Tanner Munson. Welcome back to Feel Good Astrology if you've been here before, and a warm welcome if you're new. In this episode, I'm going to be looking at Venus Retrograde. Now, Venus has just gone retrograde. I've been very slow in getting this video recorded. But I have to say, I've been really wanting to tune into the energy of it. I've really wanted to take my time. I've not really been feeling the inspiration, and now today I feel like I've got all my thoughts together. So here's how I want to work this show, and you'll see it's all chaptered, so you can go to the bits that are relevant for you. So first of all, I want to talk about Venus retrograde, essentially what it is, and also some of the patterns that Venus forms. She's got a very particular pattern. She's got a 584-day cycle. And when she goes retrograde, she goes retrograde and she forms a 5-pointed star known as a pentagram. And it's all very evenly spaced. It's very beautiful to look at. And she creates this 5-pointed star with her retrogrades every single time, has done for ages. And there's a really great astrologer called Arielle Guttman who has written something called Venus Star Points, and she's spoken about it extensively in her work. So I just want to have a little bit of, obviously I'm not going to share her work, and I'm not an expert on it, but I'm just going to introduce a few of the ideas so you can see kind of what Venus's movement is doing. Then I want to talk about what Venus retrograde represents. So in doing that, I'll be looking at the nature of Venus, what she rules in astrology, and how the retrograde period might actually affect us. Then I want to have a look at some of the previous Venus retrogrades, because with the 5-pointed Venus star point, there are 8-year cycles. So this particular Venus retrograde matches up with the 8-year cycle that has Venus going in retrograde from Virgo to Leo in fact, from 1999 for 2007, 2015, and now to 2023. The other three I've just mentioned started off at the real beginning of Virgo, going back into Leo. And there's a really sort of interesting pattern. Each time she goes back, she's going back about 16 degrees. And in each of these cycles, they're just moved on, or they're moved back by 2 degrees. I'll show you anyway, so you get a feel for what's going on. But it's really interesting to see what part of this chart is being activated in you, because it's picking up on themes from 8 years ago, 16 years ago, 24 years ago, etc., etc. And it's worth considering what's being played out here. And I'll show you how they fit in onto my chart, and I'll also show you how they fit in on Elon Musk's chart. I've never looked at his chart before. I've literally just pulled it up, and I thought it'd be fun to have a quick look at. So yeah, seeing what the historical Venus retrogrades have brought you around July to September of those particular years. So it's 1999, 2007, 2015, and now. And we can also then predict what's likely to happen in 2031, which will be when the next Venus retrograde in Leo will happen. And we can even predict from this very exact cycle that it's probably going to start around 25 to 26 degrees in Leo and go all the way back to 10 degrees Leo. So, you know, there's a lot of predictability around this. Then I want to have a look at some of the main aspects that are coming up during this retrograde, because there's some quite pretty patterns. And as I was looking at it, I was thinking, wow, this forms a great big M. I don't know what it means. I've never really seen that formation before necessarily, but something just kind of came out at me as I was looking at it. And there's a lot of semi-sextiles that are coming up during this time. So I want to have a look at that, and a couple of really big squares, which is going to affect how we process this retrograde energy, which makes it unique from the previous ones. And then last of all, and this is probably the bit that most people are waiting for, is I'll be looking at the effect of Venus retrograde according to your ascendant, or you might know it as your rising sign. You could also use that as your, exchange that for your birth sign if you prefer. You could even mess around and listen in and consider it from the position of your Venus sign. However you want to do it, I'm going to be looking at Venus retrograde from the perspective of a particular sign. So it's up to you to decide how to use it, but it's all going to be there right at the end. So hopefully this will give you quite a lot of information. So let's get started then. First of all, what I want to do is just bring up the position, or show you some of the patterns that come up with Venus. So for instance, let's just bring up the lovely pattern. So let me just make that more visible. There we go. So here you'll see that, and hopefully you can see my marker, as she's orbiting, she's kind of going around in this circle, and then she kind of slows down. And this is how it appears from our position on Earth. So she appears to slow down, and then she appears to go backwards, and then after a period of time she starts to move forwards again. Anyway, when this pattern is plotted out, you get this really lovely, very smooth pattern, very equal pattern, very beautiful to see. And it's essentially describing a 5-pointed star. So you've got your down to here, up to here, along, and it goes like this. So it's continuously, I did that wrong then. I messed up how to draw a pentagram. So it's continuous. She's continuously going like this. So she's forming this really lovely 5-pointed star. And here you see it. So it comes down, along, 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 along. It's very, very equal. Everything here is 36 degrees. Everything here is 72. So 72 plus 72 is 144, plus your 36. That's 180 degrees within this little triangle, and so on and so forth. Each of these 36 degrees here equals 180 if you add them up. There's so much lovely geometry about this. It's just so perfect. Now that can be transposed onto a birth chart. As you can see here, this pentagram has been transposed onto the ecliptic, where you've got all the star signs, the signs of the zodiac. So you've got Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, and so on and so forth. And yeah, there's a bit of a phenomenon that, and you might know this if you're a keen astronomer. I don't know that much about astronomy. I go out at night and I see things that I like, and I go out in the morning and sometimes see things. Now you might be aware that there's a morning star and an evening star, and it's the two different aspects of Venus. And so when we're in the morning star phase, and you go out, you'll see Venus in the morning sky. That is always, if you're looking at somebody's birth chart, here are two different birth charts that are morning star birth charts. Venus is always clockwise from the position of the sun. So here's the sun, here's Venus. She's always clockwise. She's always to the right of the sun in the morning star. And you'll see this is another morning star chart. So these people in their birth charts, they've got Venus in the morning star. So when they were born, if you looked up at the sky, you'd see Venus early in the day. And then there are evening star people. I'm an evening star person. And in the evening star charts, you'll always have Venus to the left, i.e. anti-clockwise to the sun. And there's another example of it here. Now, this fits into the pattern because, and in fact, what I'm going to do now is just share with you. Is there something else I wanted to share? In fact, I'll show you the pattern in a second when I'm looking at the real-time charts for this particular retrograde. But essentially, when you're looking at Venus in your chart, it's quite helpful to know if you're a morning star or an evening star, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. But it all fits in with this 5-pointed star. Now, I've just transposed this 5-pointed star onto my chart. If you read Arielle Guttman's book, Venus Star Point, or if you just do a search on the internet now, lots of people have put up the charts that you need, like the tables. You look for the time of your date of birth, and it will tell you what was the nearest Venus star point, the star point just that encapsulated your birth, and you'll be given like a Venus star point, and it will describe the last time Venus went retrograde just before you're born. Mine is actually here, which is funnily enough right on my ascendant. But all of the star points, all the retrograde points fit in with this star. The last time Venus went retrograde in, when was that date? 2021. That was the 19th of December. She went retrograde just here. Sorry, I've got lots of little icons popping up. Just here at, I think, 26 degrees in the sign of Capricorn. And she was in a conjunction with Pluto as well. So she was on one of the star points. The one we're going into right now is just here. This is where she was today when she went retrograde. The previous Leo star point was at 22 degrees. Was it 22 degrees? I've got it written down somewhere anyway. It wasn't actually. It was just here. It's moving backwards, moving backwards, moving backwards. But essentially, we have these little star points, and we can check out where they fall in our charts. And from this, we get a much better idea as to how this retrograde might affect us. So, for instance, right now, with the retrograde, I know that it's at 28 degrees in the sign of Leo. Look for 28 degrees in the sign of Leo on my chart. So I know it's going retrograde in the 10th house. And I also know it's going back as far as 12 degrees in the sign of Leo before it starts moving forwards again, or appears to move forwards again. So I know that when Venus goes retrograde in my chart, it's going through the 10th house into the 9th. And then as it works through the energy, it's going to go back into the 10th. The last retrograde we had went through my 3rd house. So it started off here, went back right over to my Venus, funnily enough, and then went forwards again. So it's interesting to plot where this is in your chart. So if you know how to draw up your chart, I absolutely recommend that you have a look at it. And if you want to see where your Venus star point is, please do check out Arielle Guttman's book, Venus Star Point, and start plotting it. What you'll probably find is that a lot of interesting things happen around these points. So, for instance, first of all, I know that my Venus star, like the other star points of my era, I've got Chiron on one of them. I've got this one here, these are all important degrees in my life. And in fact, I think I might have it. There we go. So for instance, I've got a son whose star point is here. I've got 2 children who've got their star points here. My first long-term relationship had his here, and my husband's is here. There's like so many different, you can see who is important and what they're bringing into your life. So for instance, with my husband's star point, I can see it's right on Chiron. I have obviously a bit of a program going on that I like my husband. I love the love of my life comes to me and helps to bring healing into my life. So we can really see what goes on. Funnily enough, looking at his chart, me and his ex-wife both have our star point in Scorpio. So again, he's got a bit of a pattern going on there as well. So it's worth having a little look anyway. So that's just a little bit of a dive into the idea that Venus's retrograde is very much patterned, and these cycles happen every 18 months. And what I want to do now is just quickly bring up the real life chart for the retrograde and talk a little bit more about how it formulates. So let's do that. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so I've got the picture of Venus retrograde in this chart. So I'm just going to blow it up a little bit. And there's a couple of things I want to sort of explain about it. So Venus just went retrograde this morning at 2:33 a.m. I'm recording this at just gone midday. So essentially, all the planets are going around this way. which is how they always appear to, unless they go retrograde, and then they appear to be moving back this way. So up until today, we had Venus to sort of in an anti-clockwise lead position to the sun, which means that she has been in the evening sun position for quite some time. Now she's going retrograde. She is going to be going back this way over the next 40 days and 40 nights. And during this time, Mercury is going to cross with Venus. They're going to go into a conjunction, and the sun is going to keep moving forwards. Everything else is moving forwards, apart from anything that's retrograde, obviously, like Saturn and Pluto and Neptune. She's appearing to go backwards to 12 degrees in the sign of Leo. So she's going back approximately 16 degrees. And in the first phase of this retrograde, she's going backwards, and she is in the position of the evening sun. And during this retrograde, she's going to turn from the evening sun into the morning sun. And as such, she appears to disappear from the night sky. And then she's kind of gone. And once she's established herself on the other side of the sun, she'll start to appear in the morning. And so there is this like little disappearance where she appears that she's not even there again, which is kind of interesting, because we also have a little bit of that going on in terms of Christmas and the winter solstice. The idea that, the sun returns on Christmas Day. There's some interesting like little sort of coincidences with all of these, I think, planetary stories and our planetary observances. But anyway, she's going retrograde from today, which is the 23rd of July. This is in European time zone. Obviously, if you're in America, this actually started happening on the 22nd of July. She's going backwards. During that time, she's going to cross the sun. Now, when she crosses the sun on the 13th, that is when she's changing over from being an evening sun Venus to a morning sun Venus. And then she'll reappear on the other side, and the sun will appear to be the lead planet. Now, this pattern, like these retrogrades, happen every 18 months, roughly. And so she spends half her time being the evening sun and half her time being the morning sun. And so really what's going on is every time Venus crosses the sun, she is swapping over whether she's expressing herself as an evening Venus or a morning Venus. Now, there's a lot of different mythology, loads of different civilizations have noticed the morning sun and ascribed it to a particular kind of Venus, and the evening sun has been ascribed a different set of qualities. In a chart, if we actually look at a chart, and I will come back to this actual retrograde chart in a minute, but in astrology, Venus is said to rule two signs, and one of them is Taurus, this one here. So she's the ruler of Taurus. Now, Taurus traditionally is the second sign of the zodiac and is very much associated with the second house and all of the matters of the second house. The second house is very much about money and our resources, what we're bringing in, what we earn, all the resources we enjoy. The sign of Taurus is very well known for comfort and well-being and having lots of nice things around them. They're very acquiring, like they acquire a lot of things and they hold on to a lot of things, and they have this kind of a bit like a magpie. They have this eye for a good bit of quality, something that's really luxurious. And so, Venus has a lot of these associations with the sign of Taurus in the very, very physical sign of, in the sign of Taurus and the second house, which is very physical. I also think the second house is about how we value ourselves. So, because we are our greatest resource, in fact. Although I think a lot of people forget that, a lot of people are always thinking, how much money am I earning? And I can understand that. That's a very sort of physical side of Venus. Venus also rules the sign of Libra. And traditionally Libra is associated with the seventh house, which is known for being about partnerships and love and friendships and connection. And so you've got these two very different sort of Venusian attributes. They're both, I mean, Venus is known as being a planet to do with well-being. She's known as a benefic. Venus and Jupiter are known as benefics. You know, that they benefit, they help us gain more, they help us feel good, they help us feel optimistic. And there is a certain amount of flow ascribed to Venus. So, you know, the sort of two houses that are associated traditionally with the Venus energy are the 2nd and the 7th. And one is very physical because it's very much about things and money and actual physical values of things. And the other is very much about connection and love and affection and generosity. So like one is almost about the acquiring and one is more about the sharing. You know, it's almost like how do you share your wealth? Well, you need someone to have in your life that you value, that you want to share your goodness with. So there's a lot to do with goodness and values, how we perceive things. And the morning star is very much associated with the physical idea of Venus, and the more Taurian side. It's so people who are born into the morning star are very good at attracting wealth in general, unless the rest of their chart pokes them in the eye a little bit and says, that's not for you. But they're a lot more physical. They're a lot more able to navigate the world and things and contracts and the whole idea that we have to work to earn, and it sort of makes sense with them in a kind of transactional way. And they're very good at it. You know, they're really good at understanding that. And then the people who are the evening star Venus people are more aligned with the idea of love and the emotional, spiritual side of love, like the connection, the flow, and how it raises you up. Neither one is right or wrong. They've just been observed by different people. So I would say, if I was to put it into shorthand, I would say the morning star Venus are slightly more rational and the evening star Venus are slightly more intuitive. One's more physical, one's more spiritual. But they are two sides of the same coin. And really we are spiritual beings in physical bodies. So we are also, of two parts, we could say. So the challenge for all of us is how to get balance in these times. How can we make both of those Venus energies work for us? Now, in this particular Venus retrograde, so this is the chart for Venus retrograde, and I want to just share some of the things that come up, as I'm looking at this. So, she goes retrograde at 28 degrees. And the first thing that really occurred to me is, well, there's this lovely finger of Yod, which is such a strange word. But see these green dashed lines? So there's one to Neptune, and we've got one to Pluto. And so like Neptune and Pluto and Neptune are both pointing the finger at Venus. And if you have a Yod in your chart, often what people say is that where the finger is pointing is showing us how we resolve our chart somehow. If there's some kind of underlying tension that we can't quite process, the Yod finger, the pointy bit where it's being pointed at, shows us the energy that is needed to unravel, unpick the mystery, and to put it all back together. And so one of the things I really like about this, at the start of Venus retrograde, to me, it's implying that this Venus retrograde is very important. It's actually allowing us to unpick and unravel and work with the very confusing energies of Neptune, and also the very transforming energies of Pluto. Like Pluto represents control and manipulation and also totality. And it also represents possibly the dark side, and everything that's underneath the earth. Neptune is very much about the seas and the energies of, again, totality. But I don't want to say totality in that you'll have control over everything, but the seas kind of are infinite. If you are trying to find a drop of water in the ocean, it's kind of like, where is it? This is a place of infinite energy, this is infinite water. How do we find that little one thing we're looking for? So there are two very big sort of energetic systems, and these are two of the furthest outer planets. And they are bringing up stuff from the unconscious mind, not just the unconscious, but like the collective unconscious that, you know, some of us perceive, and we might have it as a feeling. It's like an energetic field of potential that we can all access at times. And the people who are more sensitive and more practiced in their psychic awareness can use that energetic field of potential and kind of draw it into them. I guess that's the real meaning of co-creation, isn't it? And, you know, you might call that field of potential, you might call it God energy, you might call it love, you might call it universal energy. But Pluto is showing us one way we can access it. Neptune showing us one way we can access it. And none of them are right or wrong. And some of them might bring us down a funny path to get it, you know. But anyway, it appears to me that at this moment in time, Venus retrograde is allowing us to get a handle on some of the bigger energies that we can't quite understand, and she's helping us to discern them and make sense of them. Something else that's also kind of interesting to me is at the exact moment she goes retrograde, look at the position of the sun here. Look, it's at 29:59 in the sign of Cancer. And just like moments later, the sun goes into the sign of Leo. So there's this feeling like, if you think the sun represents the person, the personality, our ego, and if you think the moon represents our psyche, and then you think that Neptune and Pluto represent the kind of external psyche of the totality of humanity, you know, it's like this very sort of far out field. You've got Venus retrograde, you know, she is going retrograde just as the humanity personality is about to shift. And also the moon is about to shift as well. Now, moments later, the moon is actually known as a void moon. You know, once the sun changes signs there, the moon will actually be a void moon. She's not void because she's moments away. You know, she's enjoying her last aspect, which is, you know, that the sun before it changes signs. But, you know, both of these luminaries in our life representing our ego and our psyche are both in changing positions. So that's also interesting. And Venus retrograde is also semi-sextile to both of them, which is not a huge aspect. However, it's helpful, it's mobilizing, and it's helping to create a shift. Not a massive shift, but a gentle shift. It's letting us shift up a step. And maybe then another step and another step. It's like, take it slow, take it gentle. But you know, as Venus goes retrograde, what she's saying to me as I'm reading this chart, as I'm looking at this chart, is there are some very big shifts about to take place. And as she goes retrograde from today, the 22nd if you're in America, the 23rd if you're in the UK and over towards Asia, right the way through to the 3rd of September, Venus is taking you on a personal journey so that you are going through some personal shifts. She's going to move over and conjunct Mercury. That's when is that? That's approximately, I haven't written down the exact dates. I'm sure it's going to come out at some point. You know, she's going to be coming into a conjunction with Mercury around the 28th, 29th of July. And when that happens, it's like our internal voice about how we see ourselves, how we recognize our value in life, and how we sort of value things that have meant something to us, how we're thinking about them and talking about them is changing. I always think that Venus and Mercury, when they come together, are very sibling-like. You know, they're very much like good friends. And so I really think around this time, we are going to be... either we'll be connecting to old friends, good friends, that feeling of real comfort that we're around our people and that we're all helping each other make sense of who we are from this new perspective. As Venus continues to go backwards, she makes other aspects, I should say right at the start, you know, pretty much for the first couple of weeks, in fact, almost yeah, for the first month of this, she is in a square to Uranus. Now, if ever there was a big augury of change, that would be it, you know. So she's in a square to Uranus. At the start, she's in an applying square. She's getting closer to the square. And as time passes, she's getting closer and closer and closer to the square. And obviously, I haven't got the date in front of me, but when is it? Around the around the 11th of August, 10th, 11th of August, she's going to be in an exact square to Uranus, and that's going to absolutely create some emotional shifts for us. So it's almost like, as we're starting into this, just almost 2 weeks in, we are really shifting our loving expression, our feeling of money, our feeling and our understanding of our value. It's all shifting. And according to where it sits in your chart, that's where all the magic is taking place. So, you know, we're starting off with this promise that our personality, our psyche is being shifted. And we are in the driving seat. We're going internally. We're going inside to do this shift. And it all fits into the greater collective picture. And, you know, like 2.5 weeks in, there's a big shift forwards. There is this big feeling that something intrinsic is going on that is possibly quite shocking, because Uranus brings shocks and awareness and awakenings. Now, during this time, there's also another big square that's coming in, and that takes place. Where's Jupiter? Around about the 22nd of August. And, you know, as these dates come up, I will probably perfect them and probably record some more things. But as Venus goes square into Jupiter, again, there's a lot of I would say tension, but actually I always think that these hard aspects between Venus and Jupiter are quite inflammatory. We often go a little bit too far. And so, you know, there is this tendency that as we're going through these internal changes and shifts, that all of a sudden something is released and then we start to go a little bit too far. Obviously, if we added in other asteroids, we could add in love asteroids, some of the Liliths, like Black Moon Lilith, etc., Waldemarth, and there are lots of other. We could put Aries in. We could put all these extra bits in. I just want to keep it with these planets, but there's a lot going on. And as we're also going through this, Venus is also she's going to be in a semi-sextile to Mars. You know, she's going backwards and Mars is going forwards. All of a sudden, there's a 30 degree gap, showing that the boy meets girl energy, the sexual energy, the erotic energy is almost rebalancing and starting to reignite. It's starting to reset itself. And then there is also a semi-sextile between Venus and Mercury, because obviously Mercury moves forwards and Venus is going backwards. And so they come into a resetting. It's like, as I'm seeing this and Venus is going retrograde, I'm thinking this could also have a lot to do with our appearance, our health, all the wealth that exists within us, because we can't really get into loving relationships or maintain loving relationships if we're carrying a lot of collective old rubbish on our shoulders and we don't know who we are anymore. It's really difficult for us to move forwards if we're in bad health. It's very difficult for us to move forwards if stuff in our kind of mind-body system is gummed up. And what I'm really seeing with this Venus retrograde is it's not so much about love. It's not so much about wealth. It's not so much about anything that's specific. I'm really seeing that this is working on all aspects of what's not working. You know, effectively, I think Venus is all about flow. You know, she is showing us where we can flow through life, because when we're flowing, we can attract the great relationship. We can attract the amazing friendships. When we're in flow, we are healthy and vibrant. When we're in flow, our mind works perfectly and beautifully. And when we're in flow, we follow our own intuition. when we're in flow, we are in a place of receivership, which I think is really important. I think this absolute Venus retrograde is about us getting into receivership, getting into flow, and getting into the beauty of life again. And I really think that's coming up because we are so gummed up. Let me just do a bit more pointing out with this chart. With this chart, let's have a look at, in this year, we've had Pluto change signs going into Aquarius, which is giving us a bit of a jump start. Then it goes backwards and we're going back into that trudgy kind of horrible capitalism, corporatism, government overlord type energy. And it's like, oh my goodness, what is going on? Where are we? I still think we're in the collective hangover of, the COVID times. The last time Venus went retrograde, she was in a conjunction with Pluto here at 25 degrees in the sign of Capricorn. So the Pluto energy, I think, is still kind of playing out. We've had Saturn change signs from Uranus into Pisces. And so during the Uranus times, Saturn really stirred up a hornet's nest of all things diversity, all things equality, all things censorship, all things liberal, and about equalizing life, stirred up a whole load of stuff. And now Saturn, which often we look to Saturn for some guidance, and we look to Saturn like people like the people that appear to run our governments, our local governments, our money systems, our insurance, our medical systems, and all things like that. And we all at some level need these structures around us to work really well. And right now Saturn's in the sign of Pisces, which is kind of like anything goes, and it's a moment of collective confusion. And so we've got this kind of collective fog going on. And a lot of people that I talk with at the moment, this has been such a big year, people are starting to feel a little overwhelmed, which again is very much a Saturn in Pisces energy, and the fact that Pluto is right on the cusp of changing signs. And then let's just, if we haven't already forgotten, the North Node and South Node changed signs just last week. There have been some absolutely massive bits of change going on. And this Venus retrograde is absolutely picking up on the beautiful energy of the North Node just going into the sign of Aries, because as she goes retrograde, she's in this lovely, beautiful, almost exact trine to the North Node, and almost exact sextile to the South Node. Now, the South Node represents where we're coming from, what we're letting go of, and the North Node is saying, hurry up, this is our new direction. And so Venus retrograde, which, she's gone retrograde today for 40 days and 40 nights, and then she'll start moving forwards again. She's swapping from being over in the evening star, where she has been really for the last 9 months helping us understand the value of our connections and the people in our lives, and the fact that actually love is what we need, and we need this beautiful flow, this kind of heavenly connection that the evening star Venus represents. And she's going into the morning star position, which makes us a little bit more like a warrior Venus, a rational Venus, a one that can attract money and sort out our life, a much more organized Venus that's going to attract the things we need. So I really see that this Venus retrograde is working us on so many different levels. But the first level is to ungum ourselves. It is to free ourselves and to get back into the flow. And I think, as I started recording this, I wasn't sure what I was going to call the call this Venus retrograde. I like to name each video, with a kind of little tagline of, of what I see this energy being, and I really don't think it's about love or anything. I think this is about getting into flow again. It's freeing ourselves up. It's like this Venus retrograde is the equivalent of us going to an osteopath when our back has been kind of gummed up into place. You've been walking around in one of those kind of funny duck walking poses because your back's like completely rigid, and then you get it manipulated. Someone sorts your back out, and all of a sudden that feeling of flow, it goes through your body. everything starts working again. Any old trauma. It's funny, I've been talking to clients recently who are getting free. And I think this is the big theme. So there we go. It's about getting into flow from my perspective. It's just my perspective though. So let's have a look at the midpoint of this retrograde. And the midpoint of this retrograde is when Venus connects with the sun, when she goes into that conjunction at 20 degrees 28 in the sign of Leo. Now, again, this is a really important point. Check out where 20 degrees 28 is in your chart. Now, I know mine is just in my 9th house, but I also know that my Chiron return that I'm going through right now is at 20 degrees in the sign of Aries. So, you know, this reset point is in an exact trine to something very, very particular in my chart that I'm working on, or that Chiron energy is working through me right now. So I'm really looking forward to this reset point. And in the exactitude of Venus in the conjunction with the sun, we've got this Venus chasmy, this almost elevated Venus energy where we really go into flow. So I would say the 13th of August 2023 is a massive day, and that happens at 6 minutes past midday. That's if you're in the UK Lisbon time zone, which is also known as GMT, but I think it's British summertime right now because we're in the summer. We're plus 1 hour, but use that. This is a really, really powerful time to launch something or to absolutely focus on some deep intentions or whatever is important to you. This is a reworking time for you. So that's huge. Now, at the time when she's resetting herself, like essentially she's said goodbye to the evening star Venus image. She's saying goodbye to that softer, more heavenly perspective of Venus. And she's like crossing over into a more physical Venus, the morning star. And as she's doing that, she's in an almost exact trine to Chiron. Like I said, I'm going through my Chiron return. So this is right slap bang on my Chiron in my birth chart. But this is healing. You know, this beautiful Venus sun chasmy is in a beautiful healing position to Chiron. So anything that has been coming up for you as an issue that you've not been able to get a handle on, or you've not been able to mobilize something, maybe there's been stuck emotions or something stuck and gummed up in your body. I see this as a very strong, very catalyzing healing moment. And the great thing is, if you think about it, like Venus has been in this dreamy position where she's all about potential and the heavenly stuff, you know, and you may well have been trying to sort out your what's going on in your body or what the trauma you're trying to process. You may well have been trying to do it from a spiritual perspective, like trying to talk yourself through it, coach yourself through it. And these are the times actually where we realize that we need a physical side to our healing as well. And so as Venus crosses over into her morning star position, what's going on here is you're getting this fantastic opportunity to trust some physical solutions and to find the physical solutions and to get both of them working hand in hand together. So I think this is really amazing. Now, obviously at this time, she is in a very tight square to Uranus. She's still technically in a square to Jupiter. So this is very inflaming. You can't forget that there's something going on that you're healing from. And it's quite exciting. There is a real kind of release. There is a real freeing energy in this. So I think it's a huge gift. I really, really do. And she's ever so slightly, you know, where's the North Node? There it is. She's still just in a trine with the North Node. But she's out of that sextile to the South Node. So it's almost like the first part of this Venus retrograde, you know, was about saying goodbye to our old patterns and welcoming in the new. But, you know, as we're at this midway point of the retrograde on the 13th of August, actually, we've already turned our back on the old stuff and we are absolutely focused forwards, which is great. I love this. So the last part then, is when Venus goes direct. And here she is. She's at 12 degrees in the sign of Leo when she goes to direct. Funnily enough, she's at 12. If you like numbers like I do, you might add up the 1 and 2 and you get a 3. It's like 3, like 33. I really love number patterns and repetitions of numbers. But she's going forwards again. And she is in a semi-sextile to the sun. She's moving forwards. Wherever this is happening in your chart, as she's moving forwards again, it feels like she's unstuck. She's ungummed. She's already gone into, she's been in an exact square with Jupiter. So things got inflamed. She's moved beyond that. She went into her square. She's out of the square now with Uranus. And as she moves forwards again, she will face things as she's stepping forwards and moving back into the flow of money, back into the flow of health, back into the flow of love and this, that, and the other. But she's faced her biggest demons and she's ready to kind of zip on through. So, yeah, I really like that. I like that a lot. And of course, by the time this all straightens out again, the sun is well ensconced in the sign of Virgo. So, at the start of Venus retrograde, the sun was right at the last micro bit of Cancer, promising that we were going to be changing, we were going to be evolving in some way. As Venus is going retrograde again, we're so much more grounded. We're really in the Virgo energy. We know who we are. Feels really good. The moon is also in the sign of Taurus, another earth sign, and it's not right at the beginning. It's not right at the end. The moon is absolutely in the sign of Taurus. The sun and the moon are working together. So, my big sense is, before this Venus retrograde, there's a lot of unhealthy patterns that have just got so catalyzed, and it's almost like do or die. Are you going to shift? Are you going to allow yourself to tune into what's going on around, really feel your way into this? Are you going to see that something's not working? And are you going to give yourself that internal time to switch off, unwind, listen to your inner self, your inner child, your higher self? Are you going to look at yourself from a whole new perspective rather than just keep punishing yourself, adding more things on and keep pushing more and more and more? This is a time to reset. Now, let's just see how this, the last time Venus went retrograde, she was in a conjunction with Pluto. So, the last time she was retrograde was in the sign of Capricorn, which is very physical. It was very much in the area of where the COVID pandemic astrologically started and was seeded. And that was right at the height of ideas on mandates, ideas on getting vaccinated, ideas on you must do this if you want this. And Venus retrograde here is absolutely connected to control, to death, to medicine, to fanaticism, to extremes of polarity. And we've been carrying that energy for quite some time. So, this Capricorn energy is very, very heavy. It's very un-Venus-like, in fact. It's very formal, very rigid. It's like its owned energy. Where this Venus retrograde is now, in the sign of Leo, the sign of Leo is about performance. It's about shining bright like the sun. It's not about having loads of things on your shoulders. So I do think in this Leo Venus retrograde, what is coming up for us is taking off all the burdens that we've added on in the last 18 months. And isn't that funny that it also is very much about the North Node shift? Because obviously the last one, the North Node was about to shift from the sign of Gemini into the sign of Taurus. So yeah, these have been very, very busy years, haven't they? So that's hopefully giving you a bit of an idea as to Venus, how Venus works. I absolutely do recommend that you look at how it fits into your own birth chart. So with your permission, and if you want to skip ahead, please do. But I would absolutely recommend that you have a look to see where Venus is in your chart. I'm going to have a look at the chart of Elon Musk now, just briefly, to show where it's showing up and how it might influence him and what 8-year pattern might be going on for him. So let's do that now. Okay, so like I said, this is the first time I've looked at Elon Musk's chart. I will say, with the birth dates of famous people, there is a little rating system, and to say how accurate the time and place is. It doesn't have the highest rating system, but I just figured everyone knows who he is, and quite a few people are curious about him. Lots of people have got very, very fixed and firm ideas about him. I'm actually not sure what I think of him, but I kind of like, to me, he seems a bit like an exciting bit of chemistry. Like you add a bit of Elon and then all of a sudden some kind of dynamic change occurs. I like that about him. Without saying if it's good or bad, it's not for me to judge. But anyway, he was born the 28th of June, 1971, allegedly at 6:30 a.m. in Pretoria, South Africa. Now, the only thing I'm really not worried about, but the only thing I really want to look at is where is Venus retrograde. Now, she is going retrograde here in his second house. It starts in the second house. It's going all the way back to 12 degrees in his second house, according to his time, place, and date of birth. And then it will move forwards again. Now, for those of you that know the house systems well, you'll know that the second house is associated with money, with the resources you have, with all of the things that you're earning, and also with how you value yourself. And so as Venus is going retrograde in his chart, I imagine that he's gone through some massive changes in terms of his financial strategy. But I also think he's planning something quite big in terms of money. In fact, quite a big shift. So I think during this time, he's probably internalizing and planning quite a few ideas to make a massive, big splash somehow. One thing I notice is also that his ascendant is at 29 degrees in the sign of Gemini, which is quite fascinating to me, because right now, where's the North Node? Is at 29 degrees in the sign of Aries. So his North Node is in an exact sextile to his ascendant. It's in a trine to his descendant. And Venus retrograde is also in this lovely trine to the North Node that's going through his 10th house. Now, the 10th house is about success and power, and also how you're seen in the world. So I think he's going through some massive changes right now. Interesting as well, with the ascendant in the sign of Gemini, there is definitely this interest in news. Like, Gemini is very much about quick news, perfect kind of energy for ideas of Twitter, but also just energy in any kind of way, shape, or form. The Gemini, the idea of Gemini is it's ruled by Mercury, and Mercury is very quick. He delivers things. It's almost like deliverance systems, energy, information delivery. And you think Twitter, you think the internet, all of those ideas. And then he's even thinking about Neuralink, which, he can keep that idea to himself. It's not of interest to me, but it could be useful for other people. Who knows? But I can definitely see that there's some massive ideas going for him during this Venus retrograde. Now, if I factor in where these other retrogrades have happened in the last 8-year cycles, so in 1999, Venus retrograde started at 5 degrees. It was in a conjunction with his moon, and it went back just to the edge of Leo. And then in 2007, it started at 2 degrees. So again, it's still just on the cusp of his third house. So in the last, and then the last time in 2015, it was 0 degrees in the sign of Virgo and back into the second house. So I would say the last few 8-year cycles have been taking him from this idea of information and sharing information in the third house back into the second house. It's almost like, how can information make money? How can information be a resource? How can the flow of information, how can I become more wealthy by it, or how can my wealth impact it? Again, I'm not saying whether he's right or wrong. Like I say, I think he's like a reactive agent. I like how things have suddenly shifted, because when anything gets controlled, as far as I can see, when things get controlled, they start to stagnate and die. So I like the fact that, things have opened up, and it creates a reaction, and thereby more people are going through changes. So yeah, I can see that the last set of Venus retrogrades in the sign of Leo, and like Virgo into Leo, have been very much in his chart from the third house of commerce and moving information, in particular learning, and how we learn, is all factoring in and is moving back into the second house. If I have a look in my own chart, which isn't nowhere near as dramatic as Elon's, Venus retrograde is right up here in my 10th house. Now, the last few Venus retrogrades in these 8-year cycles have started in the 10th and been moving me back into the 9th. But almost I've just been stuck in the 10th each time these cycles have gone. And as you can see, my Sun and my Mercury are very much, in a trine to this area. But it's almost like during these Venus retrogrades, I've been thinking, what is my standing in the world? How is that changing? How can I be of use? Where's my purpose? Where's my mission? What do I stand for? And actually, as these 8-year cycles are going, I'm realizing it's less about my standing, but more about what I'm putting out into the world. So, this Venus retrograde starts in my 10th, but it ends in my 9th, definitely ends in my 9th. And it's about sharing information, possibly teaching. And it's definitely taking me more into, who cares who's got the biggest standing? It's about what's being put out there. So yeah, I'm quite excited. And, in the last one, which happened in 2021, it was going retrograde in my third house. So yeah, have a look, see where it is in your chart, because that will give you a big clue as to what is going on for you. So I feel like I've spoken a lot around lots of different aspects of Venus. So, Venus retrograde, like Venus represents flow. Sure, she represents love. She also represents money. She also represents what we can receive and how happy we are to receive it. In fact, I would also just share quickly, starting today and for the next 40 days, I'm going to be recording something about Venus and how Venus works in our chart. And it may well help you find greater intimacy in your own relationships, or if you're single and you're wondering what's going on. I'm going to be looking, for instance, at the charts of people that prefer to stay single. I'll also look at the charts of people that go from relationship to relationship. I'm going to look at love and flow of love, seeing as Venus is most people know Venus for love. I'm going to look at the flow of love and how we can get more of it, and work our way through different things. And so if that's of interest, then check out my Venus playlist, which I'll be launching today. And I'll be teaching you more about uncoding Venus in your chart. I would absolutely say that it's essential to understand what's going on with your Venus. So, for instance, how many hard aspects do you have? And also, what easy ones do you have? So please do, if you haven't already done your chart and you want to learn how to do your chart, you can join my group on School. It's www.school.com/feelgoodastrology. And there's a free course that you can do. And there's loads of videos. I think there's 10 in total, and it will help you piece together your chart and start to understand it. And then the videos that I'm about to do, hopefully will piece together a new love strategy or give you some hope, or I don't know, help to answer some of those unanswered questions. I may even talk about how to find the right dates to go on dates. So that's how far we're going to take Venus. We're going to really explore it. So there you go. Anyway, let's have a look now at all the signs. So a breakdown of the signs and what this Venus retrograde might mean to you at this time in your life, and also what you might want to consider in terms of where it's been in the distant past. And why is this coming up again? What is going on with this Venus star point view? Okay, so for the Aries energy, if you've got Aries sun or Aries ascendant, then this Venus retrograde is really picking up on all things creative and all things romance. So if you're a single Aries person, I would say that this time when Venus is retrograde is reminding you of what you're hoping for romantically, reminding you of what you're hoping for in terms of your intimacy, in terms of your sexual energy, sensuousness, dating, all the kind of fun aspects of relationships, the newness of relationships. So I really, first of all, think that the energy in terms of love, like how is that being translated during Venus retrograde? It's like you're going inside yourself to learn more about bringing freshness, greater intimacy, and I would say greater trust. Now, speaking of trust, like Venus is very much about the flow, and you can't really have flow if there's no trust. The fifth house is also about what you're creating, and so it's a huge load of energy for creative types that are making things, that are creating businesses, that are creating babies even. So everything creative right now, everything that you're absolutely wanting to put out into the world because you're absolutely passionate about it, that is being looked at through a whole new lens. And because this is a repeating pattern, this is something that has come up every 8 years or so. And as I've described in a previous part of this episode, this Venus retrograde is about ungumming things. It's about freeing yourself from the repeated lack of trust in your own abilities, the repeated lack of trust in your creativity, the repeated lack of trust maybe that you have in your sexual partners. And so this is a time during this 40 days and 40 nights where I think you can go into a new place of creativity and into a place of deeper trust, real deep trust, so that the next time this comes through, boy, are you creating something really big that changes your life. So I think use this Venus retrograde to find greater levels of trust and intimacy with all of the aspects of the things you're creating in the world. So I hope that's helpful to you. Okay, so Taurus, in terms of this Venus retrograde, I would say that there's a need for you to feel more comfort at home. There's a need for you to feel a lot more flow at home, a lot more luxury at home, and in particular, get that feeling of like beautiful connection at home. So how are all the relationships at home going? Are they smooth? Is this a time historically that has needed much more comfort? So think back, what was happening in 1999, summer 1999, summer 2007, or summer 2015, which you might remember a lot more accurately. What was going on for you at home during those times? How comfortable were you? Were you trying to build something that you didn't quite have the money for, didn't quite have the resources for? This is a time for you to really try again and to hold your dream really, really tight. Like, don't give up. But you might just have to go internal and go a little bit quiet about it to get back into the flow of what it is you're looking for. So I would absolutely recommend, if you're looking for that stability at home, you've got to feel it, which is very much a Venus thing. You've got to feel it first, really feel it at an internal level and start working with the fears that are holding you back from it. Again, you know, I'm talking about letting go of the lack of trust that you have in yourself. Now, how can you trust yourself deeper to manifest the kind of home life and the stability and the comfort that you're really, really looking for? And I really do think if you can get to the root of maybe what is holding you back with this, you're going to transform the way you live for a really long time. One thing that you might choose to look at is the programming that you had from your childhood, in terms of what home meant to you. And if you can look at the gap between what it was like and how you really want it to be, you might pick up on some of the fears that are kicking in that are holding you back from that amazing sense of flow. So anyway, I hope that's helpful, Taurus. So for you people with Gemini energy, this is quite an interesting time because the Gemini energy is really expressing this Venus retrograde in a way that's fun, in a way that is exciting, but also familial. So one of the things that I think is important for you is to really consider your friendships. You know, like what's been playing out in your friendships that is not quite satisfying. You know, like what is gumming up your friendships right now? What is gumming up or slowing down your ability to stay interested, stay fun? It feels like things have been a bit boring or a bit mechanical. And there's no doubt that you've got some very close friends and you've got this tight bunch of people around you. There's no doubt that you live within a community of sorts. And yet what's being highlighted to you right now is that there's a community issue. You know, like it's almost a bit like the thing that Taurus was suffering with, only with Taurus it's more about the home, whereas for you, Gemini, it's about the community. Like how can you feel the flow of energy? How can you feel the flow of trust and intimacy within your community? So the first thing I would recommend you do is go inside and think, what do I want to learn? Go inside and think, what will enrich me right now? Where will I find my value in myself? And, you know, you're so interested in things, like you like to take a good interest in what fascinates you. And so I would absolutely, if I was in your shoes right now, Gemini, I would sign up for something that I've wanted to learn for a long time and maybe have put off because I can't find friends to go with me, or, you know, nobody I know actually is interested. Go to something that is fascinating you and that will get the mind stimulated, because I really think that's going to mark the start of new friendships coming in and a new sense of belonging within your community. I think it's really important for you to do, because you might find that this pattern has come up before. It's not the first time that you felt like almost like you're unvalued. You know, like how can you possibly give your all and be appreciated for the amazing emotional gifts you've got? Now, in terms of love, again, you might just want to be thinking, how can I bring in more excitement? How can I bring in more interest? How can I bring in a sense of more sharing with my partner and with my friendships? And again, I think what's really coming out of this is the complete authenticity of who you are. It's okay to recognize that you may have different hobbies, you may have different interests, and you will get through it. So I don't think this is a particularly hard one for you to work out, actually, Gemini. I think it's more of a tiny shift. It's about you having confidence to really explore what you want to explore, even if nobody else wants to. And I'm pretty sure as you start to do that, you'll start to draw in a whole new set of friends, a whole new set of belonging, and some purpose that comes from that. So I hope that's helpful. Okay, so if you've got Cancer rising or you're Cancer, this energy that is going on for you in terms of this Venus retrograde period, it's really picking up on your feelings of self-sufficiency and your earning power and the flow with money. and also what you're known for. Like, you know, how do you earn your money and who's giving it to you? Do you feel confident in it? You know, I really think feeling confident is the big key to this, Cancer, because I mean, your moon, you know, you're ruled by the moon, and so your emotions go up and down, up and down, up and down, and you can be really easily dejected, and you can easily put yourself down. And, you know, when things don't quite go your way, you kind of hide a little bit and put up the defenses. And of course, the moment you put up a defense, it's very difficult for you to receive anything. And so with this Venus retrograde, if I was in your shoes right now, I would say, how can I be in receivership more? And one of the problems that I would absolutely say is occurring is you default to giving and don't consider receiving enough. And it's like a balance. You know, you can't go all the way in one direction without causing yourself problems. And so I really think in terms of bringing in more money, or bringing in a greater sense of resources, a greater sense of security, a greater sense that you can do it all yourself. I really think the key to this is actually not in what do I need to do to make this happen? How many friends do I need? What value am I giving the world? All that. None of that. It starts with, what am I giving myself? Seriously, what am I giving myself? How can I gift myself more? How can it get any better than it already is? How can I absolutely love and appreciate myself more? And I really see that as you're starting to give yourself something, even if it's just praise at the start, I really see that as you're starting to give to yourself, you'll be reenacting that flow, because the Venus flow is really based on love. And if you're not loving yourself enough, you'll be in a place of overgiving and sacrifice, but also from that sacrifice that probably nobody's asking you to do, you're harming yourself. And then comes resentment. And the moment any of that happens and those defenses come up, then you can't receive. So do yourself a massive favor, and during this Venus retrograde, go inside and love you and absolutely be open to receiving. Completely open, and start with yourself. And I really think that by the time Venus goes forwards again from the 3rd of September, you'll be in a completely new place and a state of mind. And if you don't quite believe me, then just ask yourself right now, okay, how loving was I being with myself between July and September of 2015? How much was I receiving between July and September 2007? How loving was I being between July and September of 1999, sorry, and see what was going on, because there is a shared sense of maybe withdrawal and holding back from yourself. So anyway, Cancer, you can get that done. I know you can. Okay, so moving on then, let's have a look now at Leo. Now, Leos, this is happening in your own sign. So whether this is your sun sign or your ascendant, let's just take this to mean this is a shift going on in your identity. Now, you know, the Leo identity is known for being fun. It's known for being quite out there. It's known for having a lot of attention and enjoying it, and also this pressure of needing to be quite entertaining. You know, you are like a sun pushing all that energy, and everyone can feel you and see you and hear you and laugh at all the hijinks that you get up to, and it's amazing. So you are already used to being the center of things, and that's how you like it. And there's nothing wrong with that, because there are always leaders and there are always followers, and there are always people that gravitate around that bright star. And so really what's going on, I see, is that you are going through a renovation. Only that renovation is on you. You're looking at the star that is you. And it might be as Venus goes retrograde in your own sign that you're rethinking your public image. You're rethinking, what is it I'm known for? What is it that people gravitate around me for? Is it what I think it is? And this is your time to test that. And during this time, you may well sort out your appearance a lot more. You might get a new haircut. Like anyone with that big old Leo ascendant energy going on is going to have great hair. And if it's not great, make it great. That is your calling card, Leo. the things that you're dramatic about, the things that you're known for, like the first impression that people get about you, is that still relevant? Is that still you? Because if it's not, then this is the time to just go inside and think, okay, who am I now? So this could be like a real reinvention time for you. A bit like, you know, how Prince of Purple Rain fame, you know, became a completely different entity, you know, like gave himself a complete new identity, or how Madonna does this all the time, you know. And I'm not suggesting that you do that. Do what feels right for you, what feels natural, what feels absolutely in fitting and in keeping with who you are right now, and you won't go too far wrong. It's actually quite a self-indulgent time, and make the most of it. I mean, a lot of the time you're performing for other people and other people's needs. But right now, Leo, this is about you. Totally about you. So it doesn't matter if other people like you or not, based on what you're showing. The most important person that likes you right now is you. And so take this time to go in on yourself. You might even just want to take a bit of a retreat out of the public eye. You might think, you know, do you know what? It's time for me to have a bit of a holiday now. Bit of a time to put my feet up and not think that I've got to entertain, or not think that I need to be critical to every proceeding that happens. This is a time for you to be important to you. So I hope that works. And you might also find it useful to look back at what was going on for you in July to September of 2015, July to September of 2007, and July, September of 1999, if you can remember that far back. You know, what identity issues were going on for you then, and how did you heal them? How did you work with them? It's all there for you. All the information is there for you to decode that and make that work for you, and to feel fabulous at the end of it. So there you go. One last thing I should say. When Venus goes over our ascendant, it's often a time when we bring in more love. It is one of those times when there is a bit of a love flow, a promotion flow, a bit of a rising up. So again, if you are single and you're really wanting to meet somebody, this Venus retrograde is kind of like clearing the decks out so that you are absolutely ready for a beautiful clean sweep and a whole new start. So I hope you make the most of it and enjoy it. Lots of love, Leo. Okay, so Virgo then, how is this Venus retrograde going to be impacting you? Well, the first thing I would say is to think back what was going on between July and September of 2015, July to September in 2007, and also July to September from 1999. Because with those three Venus retrogrades on that 8-year cycle that I was talking about at the start, they started off in your sign and went back into the sign of Leo. And so there was something going on at those times, which is actually leading, which is a similar theme that's going on now for you. Now, with those particular times, it felt like there was something about you that was almost getting out of control, and you needed to reel it back in and kind of get back into safety. I imagine that during those times you were actually feeling a little bit too exposed and wanting to come back into a place of privacy, a place of luxury, a place of understanding who you are and what makes you tick, and understanding. Sorry, if you can hear lots of laughter outside, at the back of our house, there's a bit of a holiday home, and there's a whole bunch of people playing, having a pool party. So they're having a great time, and good for them. But you know, this isn't the kind of energy you're wanting right now, Venus retrograde Virgo. You know, what's going on for you right now is a little bit different. It's like, actually, I'm not really ready for this party right now. I need a bit of quiet time. And so I would absolutely think, you know, how was I getting quiet time, and why did I need quiet time in the summer of 2015, 2007 and 1999? Because there was something about feeling exposed that took you back into yourself. Almost like you're a little bit reminded of old insecurities, but also reminded of when you weren't quite feeling able to deal with what life was giving you. And so this time, as I see it, with this Leo retrograde, it is this Leo Venus retrograde. It's bringing you into a place of finally being able to put your finger on what things come up for you when you're feeling exposed, when you're feeling like you're moving on. It's like your self-sabotage points, actually, if I was to put it into plain speak. It's like, where are you self-sabotaging, Virgo? And it could be really, really surprising. And it might be like peeling back an onion and getting to this core bit of something. And you're like, oh, gosh, I had no idea I was holding all of that over myself. But this is the level of depth that you need to go to. And the fact that this is all taking place in a very private part of your chart, very much linked to the unconscious mind. I would say that any kind of process that works on your mind, the way your mind works, the way your mind and your senses work together, like NLP, limbic system retraining, anything that is connecting your brain with the rest of your bodily functions. It feels like things have been stuck and you've got this chance to set them free. And so in this 40 days and 40 nights, Virgo, I really can see that this is absolutely working on you at a core level. It's almost like you're updating your operating system and you're turning it off for a little while. It's like you're having a system reboot and you're also going away for the weekend. You're giving yourself a break. I mean, you might choose not to see it in a computer analogy, but just imagine that your brain is getting a massive spring clean and you're able to pick out all those errant thoughts, those errant programs where something's just corrupted a little bit. Get rid of it, chuck it out, and then create some space for what you really do want. So I really think that the turning point around the 13th of August is really important for you. So if you could aim during this time to find out what you want to move away from, and then from the 13th of August, start planting those new seed thoughts in your brain, I see that as being a very special time. Now, in terms of love, I would say you're looking for somebody that understands you for who you are, that sees the beauty in your unconscious mind, not in the showy sides of what you look like and how you appear to be on the outside. You're really looking for somebody that loves the real you. I'm pointing at me, that really loves you the way you are. And so again, if that's something that's coming up for you, then I really think use this time to get back to that self-love and take it from there. But this is a very, very transforming time for you. And when this is all over, you know, the sun is supporting you. The moon is in a trine to the sun, all in the sign of Virgo. You know, it's helpful. You know, as you come to the end of this Venus retrograde in Leo time, Virgo, you're in a much better mental shape and ready to go forwards again. So I hope that's helpful. Okay, so let's have a look now at Libra. So the Libran energy, I mean, Libra, you're ruled by Venus. So I would say Venus retrograde is a very important time for you, especially if you've got Libra rising or Sun in Libra. Now, what this is affecting, like where Leo is where Venus in Leo is going retrograde right now, is a place of your friendships, is a place of your co-creation, is a place of you moving up in the world. But you're not moving up in the world because of what you're doing necessarily. You're moving up in the world because of who you're associated with, all these great relationships that you've got stored up, all these great connections, where you've started a project or you've been hanging out with people and you're having a great time and you say one thing and then another conversation comes up and before you know it, you've co-created something. You've put these ideas out there. Well, I think, you know, one of the things that's coming up during this Venus retrograde is okay, let's filter through some of these ideas. Let's see which ones work and which ones don't. Because in this last 9-month period, a lot of these ideas have been sort of heavenly. You know, we've had the evening star going on, the evening star Venus, and it's been very much in the clouds. It's been thought of in a kind of spiritual way. What's coming up with this Venus retrograde, I think, Libra, is you've got this chance to get really real, you know, so say, okay, let's have a look at these like massive blue sky ideas. Let's start pulling them down. Let's start really creating and start getting kind of serious about them. How can we receive something from these? How can we give these ideas legs? And this is where it's really important that you're pulling in the right people and connecting with the right people and feeling the love and feeling the collaboration that you are able to just magically draw in to yourself. So I just think this is a really great time for you. I think it's really quite exciting. I think there's a lot of change going on for you. And I think, if you treat your friends well and you're working with your friendships during this time and almost going deeper into intimacy with your friendships, I think some of these ideas are really going to stand the test of time and really have legs. Now, obviously, you are the you are the sign associated with love and partnership as well. So it would be remiss of me not to mention love. And so what I would say in terms of love and how you might want to develop a greater level of love, it's really time for you to start doing more with your partner. So it's not just about, doing the usual things that partners do. So you might go on dates, or you might live together. You might, I don't know, have this life where you both go off and do your daily things. You come back, you reconnect. I really think there's a big need for you to do something big and friendship based, like have a big goal between you, have something that you can work on together that brings out a much greater level of trust. One of the things I do notice about the Libran energy is you're connected to so many different people and networks. And there's a lot of kind of implied trust, but not necessarily something that goes really, really deep. And so I really think in this Venus retrograde period in time, you've got this chance to think, okay, have I got any trust issues with these big projects, with these big relationships I've got? Like, why do I spread out so many friends and so many projects across the board? Is it that I'm not quite committing? What's going on here? Because, like the energy of Libra looks like it's really committed and really into partnerships. But what happens if you're into multiple partnerships, like juggling lots of friendships, juggling all these different things and being really busy? That can also be a way that we can cheat ourselves out of intimacy. So I really think that this Venus retrograde is showing you how you can get more intimate, really get into much deeper intimacy with your partner. The last thing that I would say as evidence to this is go back. What was going on for you in 1999, the summer, like July to September of 1999, July to September of 2007, and July to September of 2015, because they will give you clues. How you succeeded in building intimacy then could really be important to you now. So there you go, Libra. I hope that was helpful. So let's have a look now at Scorpio then. So Scorpio, for you, this is a really interesting time, because with Venus going retrograde, she's going retrograde in in a part of your chart associated with success, with power, with coming to the top of your game, for being seen, being appreciated, lots of gratitude, but also connecting into your purpose. So what I would absolutely say, first of all, because this is quite a big position, it's it's one of these big angular houses. I would say what was going on in July to September 1999, July to September in 2007, July to September in 2015. Now, each of them will have had a different theme, no doubt. But how was your rise to the top, or how were you able to move up? What was going on at those times? Were you moving up? How were you moving up? What made a difference? And did you go into yourself to bring yourself out? Because if you can work out what you were doing that was working then, but maybe what wasn't quite on par, that will give you a massive clue as to how you can step this up in this Venus retrograde time. Because let's face it, the Scorpio energy is quite acquiring. The Scorpio energy is absolutely wanting to be powerful at some level. And so having the Venus retrograde in this very sort of powerful side of your chart is almost like a promise. It's like a soft promise that things could start to take off. And so I would absolutely look at, what fears have you got that are holding that away? Because Venus really is showing it shouldn't take too much. It shouldn't take too much of a reworking. But often with the Scorpio energy, we are our own worst enemies. So I would absolutely say, what fear, what control, what manipulation was going on that maybe stopped the success that you were seeking at those times. Because if you can get to the bottom of that, I really do think you could fly during this time. And from the 13th of August, like if you can get to the kind of nitty gritty fear things, or the nitty gritty resistances is a good word. If you can get to the resistances that are holding this whole sort of beautiful rising up, that's holding it all back, if you can find those, then by the 13th of August, you could have some real magic taking place, like real magic. And things will kind of take a lift on their own. In fact, I would just say any kind of goal that you're wanting to achieve, it doesn't have to be business, or doesn't have to be your reputation. It could also be your, like, who you are, how you are in the world, how much money you've got. If you've got like a relationship goal, you are goal oriented. So look at what you're resisting right now, Scorpio, and work on it during this 40 days and 40 nights, and you will be absolutely sailing. You'll be cooking on gas, although I think they're trying to outlaw that in the US. Is that right now? Oh, gosh. Anyway, take care, Scorpio. Let me know how you get on with that. Okay, so Sagittarius then. Now with Venus retrograde, she is going through a part of your chart that is very much about opening up and being so much more open to adventures, open to new ways of thinking, and also finding more flow and understanding in a very sort of external part of the chart that feels quite unknown. Now, I mean, at its absolute best, I think it's an opportunity to have a fantastic adventure. Like, use this time to go somewhere really unusual, to really relax, to really reprogram your mind. It'd be the perfect opportunity to go on a very sort of like deep cleanse and deep retreat. In particular, one where you might be learning in terms of new ideas on politics, or philosophies, religion, spirituality. It could be learning a new skill set. There is something, you know, the key theme is, what are you learning right now? What is eating you in a really great way? Like, you know, what can you get your teeth into? And how can you make it into a big fun adventure, you know, something new, something exciting, something deeply expansive. So I would be looking for where you can find flow during this time, Sagittarius. Now, what I would absolutely say is, look back at what was going on for you in the summer of 1999, 2015, and also 2007. I missed that one out in the middle, but it's between July and September of all those times, 99, 2007, 2015. How were you challenging yourself? How were you getting more excitement? How were you changing some of your viewpoints? I mean, did the way you see the world change significantly during that last time? As I see it, it's a time for you to come more deeply into yourself. It's also a time for you to, I think, take some flow about how you want to expand spiritually, expand into an awakening process. To me, it feels like you have got a chance to awaken in a much deeper way. I mean, anything is possible. I mean, the ninth house really opens you up to any kind of experience that you're really needing to fulfill your soul's mission, your soul's journey at this time. And if you're looking for love, then look outside of where you normally look. You know, look for love whilst on an adventure. Plan something adventurous, because that will be the thing that helps to bring in love. You know, if you're looking for more flow in terms of your money, again, the answer may well lie overseas, or in a different political or spiritual community that you're expecting. You know, everything, like the answer to where you're going to find flow has something to do with what lives outside of what is normal, what lives in the great unknown, what lives in the adventure. And so the more you can tune into the idea of your big adventure, Sagittarius, the more flow you're going to bring back into your life. And you know, the ninth house is a place of I think great excitement to you. In particular, if you've got something that you're creating, like a book, some kind of course, because that's obviously that brings in the idea of teaching, anything that whereby you're absolutely being yourself and hearing and feeling that call to freedom. All of that just works so beautifully for you right now. So I'm very excited. So enjoy this Venus retrograde. I don't think it's going to be quite so difficult for you. I think if anything, it's quietening down so you can hear the call of adventure. So go at it. Have a great time there. So let's move on to Capricorn then. For those of you who've got a very strong Capricorn coding in your chart, then what I see with this Venus retrograde is an opportunity to get a lot more clarity around where your responsibilities start and where they end. And I would imagine that in these last 8-year cycle Venus star points, I would imagine that in these last retrogrades, there have been very tricky situations for you to get clarity on, that quite possibly brought you pain, brought you up against your ideas of reality, your ideas of birth, life, death cycles. The 8th house is really notorious for giving us quite a big workout, not necessarily an easy one, often a karmic one, often that has sort of echoes of family responsibility, echoes of some kind of genetic responsibility, but it's very much about the cycles of life. Now, if you are single and you're looking for a deepening relationship or the start of a relationship, then it's the psychology that may well draw, like as you're going into this time, I absolutely recommend looking at the psychology of trauma that you're carrying with you currently, the family trauma or the family story that may or may not be hindering the process of finding love. And I recommend absolutely diving into everything that is psychological based, transformational based, and about letting go of shame, blame, guilt, and anger and regret, and recognizing that change doesn't always happen simply. It can happen simply, but it often doesn't. Often something comes into our life that is quite polar, that can shock us, and it comes into our life, so we have something to work against. It gives us something that we see, oh, I don't want any more of this, and then you work against it, and you have this new starting point, a new seed point of an idea. So I just think whatever's going on that you really want to bring in more flow for, the big clue for you in this period of 40 days and 40 nights, Capricorn, is to absolutely look at where you're holding shame, blame, guilt, anger, and regret patterns, the inner psychology of old situations that you've been kind of grabbed into, just because of where you were born, which family you're born into, etc., etc. All those old patterns can go. And this is a massive shedding. I see you changing the way you see life, and flowing in life in quite a dramatic way after this. Remember, this one in particular is very changing, very transforming, in the ways that the Venus retrograde in Leo from September 99, 2007 and 2015, they were kind of like soft launches. This is the big one. This is the one that's really going to be changing and creating a massive new dynamic for people. So enjoy that, Capricorn. You totally deserve a new start. Should you wish for one, far be it for me to prescribe what you need, but it's all there for you should you wish to pick it up. Anyway, let's have a look at Aquarius then. So this is an interesting one, Aquarius, because and in fact, I was asked about this in the chat room just very recently. Somebody was looking at my North Node forecast in the 7th for people with Aquarius in the 7th, and they were saying this kind of goes against the grain, the 7th house is about love, and Aquarians are often really saying no thanks, I don't want to be in a big commitment. But I think sometimes these contradictory signs and placements really bring up a new dynamic. They help us see a different way of relating. I love that about astrology, that everything is about perception and how we can change our minds and create a new possibility for ourselves. So in particular for you, people with a very strong Aquarian rising sign or sun sign, if you've got a lot going on there, I would absolutely say that this is actually one of the more romantic retrogrades to be going through. You know, this Venus retrograde right now is really highlighting everything to do with your thoughts and feelings about partnership, what you are hoping for, what you're not hoping for, how things have worked in the past, why aren't things working now. It's a huge restart for you to analyze what role you play in your relationships. And yeah, if you have got any aloof dramas that you play out, you know, whereby you give people so much freedom, you allow them to be themselves, and then you find that you're drifting away. What's going on there? You know, are you sowing the seeds for people to run away, or are you like playing at a fear game? Are you letting something that you're afraid of prevent you from creating intimacy? What's really going on at this time with Venus retrograde is you're being encouraged to recognize what you really want out of these relationships. And it might run counter to what you think you want, and you might be a bit shocked by that. What I would say is just go with it. You know, like the whole purpose of Venus retrograde is to connect back into our flow. You know, it's about us like reestablishing our flow again, looking at where things have got stodgy, where things have got gummed up in the workings, and find your new flow. So what I would absolutely recommend you do, Aquarius, is to look at what was going on for you in the summer of 1999, what was going on for you in the summer of 2007, what was going on for you in the summer of 2015, because they carry this sort of echo of this problem or situation that you're carrying around with you now. So look deeply at it, allow the learning of that to come back and for it to sit with you and for you to be changed by it. You may well find that you've already answered your question from a long, long time ago, and yet you still had some resistances. There was something that was stopping you. There was maybe an expectation that you had that had to be met. That now, 8 years later, you might think, well, I now realize that expectation that I was putting on all of my relationships was, I don't know, unachievable. Or I now realize that the expectations I had were based on who I was back then. And actually, I'm a different person now. So this is an opportunity for you to completely rethink all of your relationships and how you interact with others on a day-to-day level. So anyway, I really hope that's helpful to you, Aquarius. Really do wish you the very best Venus retrograde period. And, you know, by the 3rd of September, as Venus is moving forwards again, boy, are you going to start feeling that flow. So, you know, I've got complete faith that this situation can be completely turned around and enjoyed. So last but not least, we've got Pisces. And Pisces, bless you, this is going through quite an interactive part of your chart that has to do with your health and healing, has to do with your feeling of your day-to-day organization, your work, how you manage life, really. I mean, the 6th house is traditionally associated with the sign of Virgo. And, you know, like Virgo's your opposite sign. It's not necessarily the house that you do very well in. It's not the house that your Pisces energy really understands. But this is where, this is where the retrograde is taking place. So how is this going to work out for you? How is this going to show up? Well, what I really think is happening is Venus retrograde is showing you that in recent times, you've taken on way too much. And the wheels of creation, let's just say they've stopped. Like you've gone as far as you can possibly go now. And it's time to slow. I was going to swear then, but, and you could probably anticipate what I was about to say. Slow TF down. Like right now, it's time to stop. It's time to absolutely stop, because what I feel is like the wheels of creation have just kind of come to a stop. It's like there's things that are stuck in the wheels that are holding it back, and you just can't do it. And what you need to do is absolutely stop. Give yourself a break, Pisces, especially seeing as you've got Saturn going through a very important part of your chart as well. I mean, you know, that in itself is getting you to look at the inner workings of how your life is going. But you want to kind of get down on your hands and knees with a dustpan and brush screwdriver and pick out whatever is in the internal workings of your wheels of creation, and pull out all that muck. Like, really stop, clear out the wheels, and then just think, okay, how do I want the wheels of creation to work in my life? Like, like, here is how my life is looking right now. I've got work, I've got my home, I've got money, I've got a relationship, probably, I've got my health, I've got friends, I've got desires, I've got family, and you've got a whole list of things. And right now it's like all of them are taking up more time than you have. And obviously that's not going to work for you. So I think it's time to absolutely get really kind of organized. I hate to say that to you, Pisces, because it's almost like one of those difficult words that send you into resistance and fear, because at some level it feels monotonous, it feels boring, it feels like not what you're here to do. And one of the things you pride yourself on is your joy of life and the spiritual side of life, which is about intuiting your way forwards. But right now, we are absolutely reminded of the polarity of life, that you are a spiritual being in a physical body. And right now you need to attend to your very physical life, because if you don't do that, you're not going to be able to attend to all the spiritual stuff. So it's like getting on your hands and knees and thinking about your work. Are you in the right job, first of all? And if not, what are you looking for? Can you do it in the interim until something better comes along that's better suited for you? And apply that logic to every part of your life. We all have the same amount of hours in every single day. And during this Venus retrograde, the flow in the organization of your world, it just feels like it's not flowing. And it is time to turn this around. And you've got 40 days and 40 nights to feel that kind of coming to a stop, and then feeling like those wheels are unwinding. And that's when the joy will start to come back in. It's like, oh, I was so busy, I didn't even realize I could evaluate where things were going. Things were being added on. Here, Pisces, have some more. Sure, I'll just catch that for you. And it's like you've just taken on so much, and it is absolutely okay to sit down. It's absolutely okay to cry. It's absolutely okay to let everything that has been on your shoulders all this time, I was going to swear then, and just let it go. Absolutely. And it is time to take a step one at a time. And during this Venus retrograde time, it's time to absolutely recognize that when you are loving yourself so deeply that you care and put yourself first. Absolutely, you put yourself first. And that is the first step in easing out of all these extra commitments that, right now you can't do. You can't meet them. So just let them go for now. It's absolutely fine. And as you start to move forward step by step, putting more emphasis on what you need, the self-care. Because, this is the sixth house in a nutshell. Yeah, it's about organization and stuff. But it's also a place where we get into a physical disorientation. It's where we find ourselves in difficulties with our energy levels and our health. And so this is absolutely a time to let go of those things so that you can get yourself back into health. Now, Pisces, this might be painful, but ask yourself what was happening in July to September of 1999, 2007 and 2015. How did you get your life back on track? How did the Venus retrograde, how did you still your mind, get calm, sit with yourself for a moment? And how did you free yourself? Because this is what is being offered to you right now with Venus retrograde. And this one is going to change things so much more than all the others. This is so much stronger. Now, out of all the star signs, I absolutely recommend that, if you are okay with a bit of astrological jargon, you have a look back at my earlier part of the video where I'm talking about this particular retrograde and what it represents to all of us. Because this message, I think, is really, really pertinent to you. Venus retrograde is about love. Yes, it's about flow. Yes, it's about money. And yet none of that can happen when your base level is in shock or in trauma. And so I just think it's time for you to slow down. And then as you attend to yourself, then all that flow can start coming back. Then all that lovely romance, then all that lovely dating, then all that lovely flirting, the love, the money, it will all come back. And it feels just like in this time right now, Pisces, it's just time to say, okay, I'm stopping, putting my feet up. I'm going to give myself a pedicure. I'm going to go to the shop. I'm going to get myself a little face mask. And you treat yourself beautifully, and the Venus retrograde will do all the rest. So anyway, I hope that's helpful. I hope it hasn't triggered anything too hard. With all of these aspects, there are some signs that are affected a bit more than others, and some that go so much more at ease, with the energy. And we all have our ups and downs, and that's kind of how it works. We all have our day, and then we all have a few days that might challenge us. And this, like I said, this is a time of massive polarity. So whatever's going on for you in this Venus retrograde time, I would absolutely say softness is the way. Gentleness, self-love, self-nurturance. If you can free yourself from any resistance that you've got going on in your life right now, in the various areas of the life, in your signs that I was describing, I really think you can be working towards something really fantastic. So anyway, thank you so much once again for joining me. Like I said, if you're a return viewer, I absolutely adore the fact that you've come back. So thank you. It means so much to me. If you're new to my channel and you like it, please do give me a little subscribe, or even a comment about how this might help you or what else you'd like in future. But yeah, thank you so much. And if I can be of any help in the future and you want to reach out to me, best way to do that is via my free online community. It's www.school, that's skool.com/feelgoodastrology. Anyway, lots of love to you. Enjoy this Venus retrograde. And like I said at the start, I am going to be putting out some little short love videos all about Venus for this whole Venus retrograde period. So anyway, watch that space too. Lots of love. Bye for now.
To request a reading with Louisa, go to www.feelgoodastrology.com.